Okay, so I'm the person from company ERP, and my discussion would be it's written tough lessons in distribution, multinational environment. So basically my whole career is quietly connected with such environment, and when I started working in ERP, nothing changed in that. So, but the passion for Agile and for Scrum methodology just grew rapidly. So we can start from our agenda of my presentation. So briefly, I'll talk about my background in Agile, then about the project. I'll present the project and what were the wrong ways, what we did, what were the good ones, and what lessons we learned, and what advice I can tell you not to make mistakes again in such situations. Then what role was of the Agile and specifically Scrum in our project, what strengths we had as a team to implement it, and what hot issues we had, which was frustration for us. And basically then we end up with a conversation. Maybe you'll have questions regarding this presentation that will sum up all. So we can start from my background. I mentioned my bachelor because my acquaintance with Agile and Scrum methodology began at that time when I wrote my bachelor work. It was 7 or 8 years ago, and it was basically Scrum and XP combination and what it brings to the team. Later, strong acquaintance with Agile and Scrum was in Tieto. At that time it was Tieto and Ator, now it's Tieto. And there I ran through RUP, OpenUP, Scrum. A lot of restructurizations in process was at that time. And of course, most of our projects were distributed and multicultural because we worked with the Finnish guys, and we were here in Lithuania. We had our team here and worked with the teams in Finland. Now I'm working in ERP, and it's a Lithuanian company, but it's also a multinational. ERP has its locations mostly in Eastern Blocs countries like Belarus, Kazakhstan, Tajikistan. So our projects and most what I did were with such countries. So let's begin with our project. The project was for Tajikistan, and it was a government project. So Agile in government, first of all, it is. And we were developing a system for customs, electronic declaration system. So basically, we had to make not only software, but to bring them the hardware and everything else. There was nothing, just papers, people, and not enough people for the business running correctly. And then for the project, in various times, there were 50 people working, and mostly all of them made some input to the project. Project lasted 2 years, and when my team joined it, we joined not at the beginning. It was already half of the year spent it for nothing. It was just late for half a year, and it was distributed through 5 countries and 6 cities. So Tajikistan, Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, Belarus, and Lithuania. In Kazakhstan, 2 cities also separate. So all of them had their own teams, and for several teams in the cities even. A little bit about architecture and how it fits with Agile also. So basically, it was done in SOA architecture. We had a lot of self-sufficient systems, free internal systems, which coordinated all the work, all the process of the electronic declarations, and 5 external systems which were proposed for traders. So a lot of systems, a lot of integration between them, and many common services which were used by all the systems. So when our team got to the situation which I already told, our initial plans were very optimistic. We wanted to implement Scrum. It was risky already because the project already was risky. It was late. And we wanted all the teams to use Scrum. So we wanted a situation of scrums. We wanted quick iterations, short, 2 weeks long, active and often communication with client, and one backlog for everyone with the priorities. So it was quite nice and good vision, but reality showed it won't be such, and it didn't. So what we started to do when we gathered in one city, all the teams were brought to one location, so it was like kickoff. I remind you that it was already done only half a year of the project beginning official. So we ourselves not were very confident also in Scrum. The company just had such initiative, but Scrum was not our cultural aspect still. So a lot of problems still locally were. And in the workshop, we presented our vision about architecture because we were implementing something similar here in Lithuania with our customs. And we thought that our knowledge will bring and make faster this project. This was one of the biggest reasons why we joined this project. But it seemed also not that every team has accepted, even though that we had a sample that works. Then we had to present tools, because a lot of distributed teams, and there was no possibility to have their own backlogs or something. So most of the tools were presented just for collaboration between teams. Our Skype chat or group chat was very funny. A lot of Russian, English, and Lithuanian language mixed. And if some strange person that just come there and see what we are chatting, it could seem very horrible. Just because of the reason that not everyone spoke or written Russian, and not everyone knew or write in English. So we had some tools for generating documentation. So no one write Word documents. We just modeled and generated. So I'm mentioning because it also saves time, times, and we had to put some effort to make it work. Others are more technical for continuous integration and for building, but it also brings your agility to technical solutions when you are implementing your project. We started with the backlog and with the priorities. And this was the beginning, and not very fluent beginning. Not every team used that backlog. First of all, the priorities were quite chaotic. One of the reasons We wanted to everybody see it so that we can make integration work more fluent, but it also failed. One of the reasons why it happened, just most of the teams had their own self-sufficient systems and wanted just to cover their eyes and heads and don't see what's happening, not see the whole picture. Of course, we had progress visualization. It seems quite nice, yeah, but this sample is not for the good sprint. We have here our burn down chart, but at the end, we have not all business value stories or tickets closed, and the demonstration seems not very okay, even though that tasks hours are quite seem to the end, and it's quite nice burn down. Our ceremonies for Scrum also were stacking. First of all, sprint planning. It was quite ad hoc, and Backlog was not always prepared for that. Review was quite formal and didn't give us much feedback. But we managed that, we grew that, and most also effort was done only by our company. And later we'll discuss what was the reason and why. And first of all, our biggest goal was working software. And when you heard the first presentation about these levels, Bentley and Lada, so in all these conditions what we faced, our first goal was, okay, we'll start with Lada. What we thought, what is Lada? And the software could break, and it can have bugs already at the release or at the demonstration for the customer. And it was told to the customer that it will be so, because we are very short on time already. No hidings from the customer or saying everything is okay, what we planned is okay. So that wasn't that case. He knew what he's signing for, and he agreed on that. So what we thought was Lada, and maybe, okay, he'll not be very happy with those releases. Surprise to us, he was very happy, and he even didn't want any Toyota or even more higher. Just to remind you, it's Tajikistan. And when we started the project, they had continuous electricity only half a year ago. So you can think about their IT infrastructure, their internet, and so on. Of course, we had our different views, what is quality, and so on. So we started with that. We just cut it features as we could. We made priorities to what we want to build at the first time, and put what we don't want to build, and maybe if there won't be enough time, they just won't be done at all. If go to the future, we did all what he wanted and what was necessary, because all requirements were already dictated by the customs law and what procedures should be done and so on. But that rough cutting of the features, rough cutting of the quality, rough cutting of those whether it's nice or not, using already gained experience in previous projects, raised that project incrementally. Also, it was reviewed not only by the customer, because it is financing project, government project, and all finances were not from Tajikistan, but from World Bank. They were reviewing all the documentation and all the software. And strange to us was when they saw the what we delivered on the first release, we get such comment that he looked at UK's eCustoms and said it's even in some cases better than that. And our assumption was we created LADA. So very funny. So what we began from, the Kazakhstan and Azerbaijan were the main winners of the tender. So they were the owners of the project, but they had no much knowledge about what to develop. And so they asked for our help. As I mentioned, there was a workshop for that. So after workshop, our teams expanded to this. So our main team is at the center, and I'll explain why it is there. This team was mostly concerned about hardware and all IT infrastructure for all the posts of the custom. This team made some financial systems. So they mainly were self-sufficient and only participated in the process of electronic declaration. So we had then integration team in Belarus, and analytical team, which was also in Belarus. We hadn't much analysts on our side, only several, and in there was quite a lot of them, 6. There was quite a lot of documentation to read, to implement, and to know what to implement. Developers didn't have such deep knowledge in the business so that they can make only by some simple statements. We had some specs. At the beginning, a lot of them. At the end, they were quite abstract, and it was enough. We started the project with this. Later, joined another Lithuanian team, but they made their own product. So, as you see, I draw some lines, red, some dotted line, blue. This expresses the intensity of the communication between teams. So you see that with some teams, we collaborated quite intensive and normally, with some not very much because of the integration, with some only in cases. But nothing was quite surprising, and we had a lot of problems, and mainly the problem was that we had lead analysts on our side, and no one was talking to the client. Everyone assumed, okay, we have here a lot of analysts. They made Belarus customs. They have a lot of knowledge. Belarus customs, we assumed, not very different from Tajikistan. It's from Russian republics. So there won't be any differences much. But it turned out that there are a lot of differences, and we have to talk to the customer. With the first releases, we just saw that, and a lot of comments were from the customer side. So what was happening? We have several more developers for our team. This was the reason that we were taking too much for us. I'll explain why. And we hired business team in Tajikistan locally. So there was their role was the only one: talk to the customer, and they were our product owners. So they wanted very passionately to finish this project and be successful, and that was the key why they gave us good priorities, why they shown increments, just brought to the client, talked with the client, showed it what is happening, how the system looks. The other reason, you can see the number of systems for teams. And some teams even were equal to our team in the developer numbers. But the number of systems was not planned like this. For example, our team was planned that it will do only 1 or 2 systems and will be consultants, share our knowledge about this business, and most of the work will be done in Belarus. They have analysts, they have developers. What happened? The only team that was very passionate and committed to the goal of the project and to finish that project and to try to fit to the limits of the time was our team. And all other teams started to seeing other goals which were not the goals of the client, were very personal and not compliant what project needed. So we spent half a year trying to convince and to direct to that goal, to share the knowledge and that they can do the work, not us. So it was quite a long time, and if I can get back to the future or past, so I wouldn't spend so much time now. The signs for that are that if the other teams are not committing, the management is not committing and making a lot of political flavor, then stop doing that. That was, and that rule, which I can say that I will now follow, because there are limits when you have to stop and then take responsibility on yourself, and that we did, and we coped it. We had a team that was very courageous for doing challenges. We had short project before that, which was making prototype in 3 months. We did it in 1 month because it was already late. It was only 1 month when we joined left. So we thought maybe we can make even more challenges in such environment where we have to talk with different culture people. And that culture, I can say, reflects in work. We were shocked when we noticed critical bug in production. It was done by other team, and we just wanted to notice that bug and to say how to fix and not to have in the future. The response to our such feedback was, we found the person who is guilty, how do you want to punish him? So it was very agile-ish. So we tried to be more, how to say, to talk to them than in other way, not to raise such things and not to punish developers or analysts. Our team started to dictate quite fast pace of the project. Basically, I can say we were the only who followed the Scrum rules and Agile main principles, and we tried to do our best following them. Of course, it was not so easy, and not everything was very fluent, taking in account that it was our first such pure project where we were using Scrum. And not everyone was good with that pace, and results were such that we had only 1 team which used successfully Scrum. It was our team, joined with several guys here. It was a small team of outsourcing. So with outsource guys, there's also another story, how they look at Scrum and how you have to talk with them, and how you have to arrange finances with them, agreements with them, because there were such cases that we were not the team who hired them. Their bosses were here, and they paid them money, but they were working for us. And what happened? They paid only them for coding, and for Scrum, we need guys that they can also, when we need, make some testing, make some design or something. And it wasn't that case. They said, no one will pay us money for that. Collaboration between teams, we had representatives, and that was the good thing we've done, because those representatives were quite competent in the roles. They managed their teams quite well. So there weren't very big problems with integration, but with some teams we had them. But it was enough just to communicate with them and not to force them use any kind of methodology. We just put them milestones. So you can see that we were working by iterations, and we just made milestones for them. And technically, we just stopped the services and waited while they implement something. At the beginning, communication, as I said, with the client was very poor. Later, it turned out to be very good. And that was the good result why we had native people who were talking with the client, not our people. Backlog, as I said, wasn't for everyone. There even were cases where persons prohibited to see our backlog, even it was shared, but not every team just showed. Priorities stayed chaotic until we had that business team. Then they settled down, and it was quite good. Teams were misbalanced in their formation. As you see here inside, we have our team. Most of the teams were quite well formatted. Here we have analytical team only analyst there, with the head analyst, who is very stubborn and doesn't want any changes. But at the last, we were successful with the project. We weren't late at the milestones and at the agreement with the customer. But some didn't make that pace and that speed, which was done by our team. We were very passionate and enthusiastic to do it, but some just didn't manage. Maybe you can guess which team just left this project, because it was so. No, other guess. It was analytical team, and the last year we spent without them mostly. So who just analyzed the business? Then you can answer. We had, as I mentioned, 2 analysts on our side. So what this whole team of 6 persons did was covered by 2 persons on our side, but it was changed drastically. We didn't wait for any specs. Our developers already knew quite a lot about business, but we changed our work with the analysts so that we don't wait the specification, but we do everything in one sprint. So analysts start analyzing the business case, and he talks with our developers, and developer is already doing the stuff. And at the end, we have the spec, because it's needed for government, and we have a software running according to that spec. As I mentioned, we didn't write documents, so everything was in modeling in UML, and then generated for for the documentation. But I can say this team wrote a lot of documentation. It was 2,000 pages. So, but I can say how developers looked at that documentation. They just open the document, scroll a lot, and then only some meaningful and something different they read about it, and that's all. So a lot of waste was done here. So what were the strengths and which helped us to implement, first of all, Scrum in our team, and helped to make successful project. So in our team we had good communication, and it was good also with other teams concerning integration works. It was very healthy. Daily Scrums was the very core of that communication. I mean, after 15 minutes, we are going to solve some problems if there are. And this was like a start at the morning for communicating till the evening. So we hadn't any such persons that don't want to talk. So there was no such problem. It was our already given strength of the team. So no big issues or challenges here. As I mentioned, we chose competent team representatives to have just good communication between teams. So in some light perspective, it was quite like distributed Scrum, but it was not full. And those other teams didn't use that Scrum, so only the communication model was taken from that. We used quite and created quite a lot of reusable solutions. And as in the progress of the project, we saw that we can make a reusable solution for the future even. So our management already, its appetite grew at the project. It was not enough to have such dense project, but we had another goal. Let's do the solution which could be used for and sold to other customs. So that was also our goal, the personal goal of the team. And it was done partially, of course, but the baseline was already created good for such solutions in the future. And quite a lot of reusable solutions were used. As you saw, our team did 6 systems. So one of the reusable solution was, why not it made to look like similar? So all UI front-end framework was just adapted and used for most of those systems. And for the client, it was not an issue. It was even better. The UI and the layout was quite standard in that way. And it saved us a lot of time thinking about some other UI solutions or something else. Other such things as breaking down the whole functionality. For example, we made simple forms, but for customs you need a lot of validation, not structural validation, but also business validation, business logic validation. So we had an additional system for business rules. So if you technically know what is business rules and tools for that, so you can imagine them. If no, so sorry, I won't explain them. So those simple forms were created, and the service was called, and it just brought nothing. But later we'll add more business rules, and we started to get the whole picture, the process of the customs. The same went with the state management, process management. It was made very transparent so that everyone can see what's going in the internals of the software. We minimized waste, as I mentioned, the change with the work of analysts. We started limiting how much of the specs we really need, because customer didn't care much how much of that documentation is. He was interested that it should be covered, but in general, we hadn't such very detailed requirements, what have to be specified, what had to be implemented. There was room for our creativity. So this helped us to minimize waste, technically also. Right tools, as I mentioned, for generating documentation. It would, if we had to write everything in Word documents, it would take a huge amount of time to write such documents and to have modules also. And was very nice, we were most happiest team in both this project. The sign of it was when I asked review after project to write everyone what according to questionnaire. I got answers only from my team and the team which we were working with, the outsource team, which was very close to us. From others, I didn't get anything. And the main factor was belief in success. No one, even in other teams, believed that we'll succeed with the project. What were hot issues? Of course, distributed teams. We used only Skype and Wiki for collaborating. And I would suggest investing in video conferencing if you are doing a lot of such work. Cultural aspects. As I mentioned, they were very aggressive, resistant. We had such responses and feedback when we tried to implement Scrum in Belarus team. We won't play kindergarten, so please get lost with this methodology. Tight schedule. Our project suffered a lot because of bugs. We pushed to the limits, so only development, no unit testing, nothing. So you can imagine what was the quality, but it was okay for the customer. So it should be okay for us too. Of course, we weren't very happy with that, but whatever. Too much, as I mentioned, time spent on one vision propagation. If you don't see any passion in other teams, so stop doing it. Collaborative requirements. This was the case when we had a lot of documents throwing on us. Instead, we had to talk. And at the other limit was less documents and guidelines for developing standards, for analysis process, and so on. We hadn't such documents, so prepare your homeworks for that. In summary, what I can say, focus on intensive communication if you are doing distributed projects. In either case, you have to either have more intensive communication or you'll have to write a bunch of documents. So choose what you want to do. Find the key persons in every team to communicate with, and every team member has to find his own peer on the other team to collaborate with, so that whole team can also share some knowledge. Prepare your homework, because homeworks increases your performance. In that case, that you're already prepared for the project and you don't waste time for it. Convincing others and so on, you have more self-confidence in you. Talk with the client, it will eliminate waste. We get lost a lot of use cases because of that. And think about usability, automation, modularity. It's already technical aspects, but think about it, and it will also can save you time, especially if you are doing SOA projects. It's easier to modularize, just don't do much for that. And first of all, and most important, get support from other teams and from their managements, because we suffered a lot of them because of this. Just their team, for example, is very passionate at doing, but management has different priorities. And as you saw, we had a lot of different companies involved in this. So big problems come when there is no whole picture and no one vision for us to do.